Hi everyone, thanks very much for downloading our webinar on how you can go about fixing your face-to-face fundraising program. My name is Charlie Hume of Donor Voice, and I'm here with my friend and colleague Rachel Honeybun.
Hello there. Hi.
So over the next 20-30 minutes or so, we're going to walk you through how this headline that you're seeing in front of you came to be, how Amnesty in Belgium were able to move first 6-month face-to-face retention from 60 to 80%. Okay, now, although Rachel and I are presenting, neither of us can take credit for this headline. That goes to two gentlemen who really should win the Nobel Prize for fundraising, Ilya da Costa and Kevin Schulman, who collaborated together over many years of testing and investing to get to a place where this became reality. And although we're focusing on Amnesty in Belgium, these results have been replicated by all kinds of causes all around the world. We're going to talk about Amnesty because they've been doing this for the longest. Okay. So how do they do it? Well, let's look at the next slide. So they took a page out of this toilets handbook. Okay. So we're deliberately starting with a kind of provocative question, but we can see that there are toilets on the face of this planet that are more interested in the user experience than most, if not all, of our sector. Okay, this toilet is actively seeking feedback on what it's like to engage with or to use it. Okay, how does that compare with how we're currently going about running face-to-face fundraising? I think if we look at the next slide, we can see it may be a little harsh in terms of intention from our side of the fence, but certainly from where the supporters are sitting, this is pretty much how it feels. Okay, and certainly from where we're sitting as fundraisers, we know that face-to-face fundraising ultimately is a quantity game. It's about getting as many people on the street to say yes. Okay, pure quantity. We have no real quality measures in place. I mean, we're defining quality as they said yes. So we're not measuring failure at all. Everyone who said no, that's lost. We have no idea of the impression that was made, or the influence we made, etc. But all yeses end up looking the same to us. Okay, which means everyone's going to get treated the same. Okay. In the meantime, we know that the costs of doing this are shooting up while the yields are going down, because exactly as we can see there, as quickly as we're bringing them in the front door, they're leaving out the back door. So if we look at the next slide, we'll see an image that probably is familiar to, I think, wherever in the world you're tuning in from. This image is not going to be unfamiliar to you. It's actually looking at the first 12 months face-to-face sign-up for a very, very well-known large UK charity. And what you're seeing there is the amount of people they're losing in the first 12 months. Okay, and as we all know, the real pain point is occurring in the first 3, and it starts to flatten out. Okay, so we get a heck of a lot of people come in the front door, an awful lot of them are leaving in the first 30, 60, 90 days, and it starts to tail off. So clearly we need to do something. Something has to happen, because that cannot be a sustainable way to save the world. Okay, it can't be. We have to do something. So here's one of the somethings that people have tried. If we look at the next screen, we'll see the answer that this charity came up with. Okay, and if we just build the entire thing out, they decided to run a loyalty track over the first 3 months. Okay, it was a welcome call in the first 3 weeks. We'll send a postcard in the first within the first 4 weeks. We're going to get at least 5 text reassurances, mobile reassurances in this first 73 days. We'll send a quote-unquote engagement newsletter, and we'll send you an update. Okay, and as we can see, it actually, despite best intentions, made the problem worse, not better. It would fall in the category of being comic if it wasn't tragic, and the reason for that is twofold. First of all, it's based on quote unquote best practices. Okay, the idea that this needs to happen, that we need to be saying thank you, we need to be sending people a lot of stuff to reassure them. Okay, it's also based on randomness. There were an infinite number of ways that we could have done this. The call could have come at 2 weeks instead of, or 4 weeks. The postcard could have been, 7 weeks or whatever. We could have sent 12 SMSs. We could have sent it to different people at different times with any number of combinations of channels and so on. Random on the who, random on the what, and it won't work. Okay, and this has been validated again and again and again. Rather, there's a different way of doing it, which we've seen from Amnesty, where they've been able to increase first 6-month retention from 60% to 80%. So just to break that down into kind of, what that means to the bottom line, that's an extra €240,000 in the first year for every 10,000 donors that they bring on their file. So the point being, this is not some hypothetical. This is already happening. Amnesty and other forward-thinking charities are getting into the business of fundamentally changing the mindset of how they are going about fundraising, and they're reaping the rewards. Okay, and if we look on the next slide, we'll start to see how they did it. So how are we going to get there? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to add the quality measures that are currently missing. Okay, we just don't have the measures in place that we need in order to make the meaningful change that's got to happen. Very specifically, there are two things that aren't being measured. One is supporter commitments. Commitment is another word. It's shorthand for motivation or intent to stick around. Okay, think of it as a supporter relationship. We have no measure as people walk through the front door of where they are on that commitment scale. Okay, and make no mistake that there are varying degrees of commitment from the very moment people walk through the front door. Okay, you will have higher and lower, and it's there, but it's currently invisible. Okay, all that we need to do is to surface that to get a predictive measure of who is likely to want to stick around and who is likely to walk out the door. Okay, the second thing that we have no measure on is satisfaction of that interaction in the moment. They could be highly committed to the organization in principle, but when they met with that fundraiser and had a poor experience, the practice of interacting with the organization was very, very different. Okay, so was this a good experience? Was it a bad experience? Was this person friendly and helpful, knowledgeable? Were they able to answer my questions? Were they rude? Were they pushy? We don't know. Okay, so we need to start measuring quality. Then we need to add the data that we don't have to the data that we do. So we need to add the quality data to the recruitment and the retention data that you already have to start getting a complete picture of what is going on there. And the last thing we need to do on that front is to bring that up to date and visible and make it much, much quicker than we're currently getting it. You can now see, and this is, we'll dig into these a little bit, or Rachel will a little later on. What we're seeing here is just static screenshots of a dashboard that you would be able to see on a daily basis who's signing up, okay, and then start to get these measures in place. Okay, so you can see the age of sign up, their satisfaction, their commitment. So you will know as they walk in the door, their likelihood, their intention to stick around. Okay, so let's see why that matters. What you see here is the last donor who signed up. Okay, the last 4 donors even who signed up. They were walking down the high street. They all met with the same face-to-face fundraiser on the same script in the same place on the same day. Okay, but because of what we're currently measuring and how we're defining success, they all look identical. Okay, so these 4 cardboard cutout donors look exactly the same to us, and so will be treated exactly the same. They will all go on the same journey. But are they actually the same? If we look at lady number 1, it turns out that once we dig a little deeper, this lady has very high commitment to the organization, and she had a great experience. Okay, We don't know that, so there's nothing we can do to build on that. There's never going to be a better time to ask this lady to do something else, whether it's refer a friend, share this, maybe take a campaigning action, whatever it might be. Never going to be a better time to do that than in that moment. But because we didn't know about the moment, it's gone. Okay. The lady next to her, she has equally high commitment. Her motivation or intent to stick around was good. The cause was one that mattered to her. Maybe she was connected to it. Maybe she has some kind of understanding of it. And it resonates with her in her life. But the experience that she had was a poor one. So she's very likely to leave. Okay. The only time we're going to know that she's leaving is probably a month, 3 months after she's left, and you're running the attrition reports after the fact. What we could have done by surfacing her commitment and experience levels is knowing up front what was going on and fixing it. Okay, the lady to her right had low commitment. Okay, so she didn't really have a kind of high understanding or affiliation with who you are and what you did, but she had a pretty good experience. Okay, never going to be a better time to try and raise her commitment levels, get her to understand a little bit more while she's still in that kind of warm glow phase. But that's not going to last forever, and because we didn't know it happened, again, it's past. Okay, and then finally, the lady to her right, she had low commitment and she had a poor experience. So is she really your best prospect? She at the moment looks identical to all the others. The same time, effort, spend is going to be put on the lady on the extreme right as on the extreme left. Okay, if we knew that she had low commitment and poor experience and she's highly likely to leave, again, maybe we could start to look at changing her journey a little bit. Maybe we could migrate her to a lower gift, or maybe a different type of product, or even just, in the nicest way possible, start to move her off the books. And if you're working with an agency, get your clawbacks sooner. Okay, so this is just a visual illustrative example of the last 4 people who walked down the high street and that signed up and said yes, to show you how radically different they are, and because they're different, they need to be treated differently. It's also worth pointing out that these same variants, high commitment, low commitment, good experience, bad experience, exist for every single supporter you've ever recruited and will ever recruit. We haven't created these, we've just unearthed them. So how do we go about unearthing them? Well, that's what we can see on the next slide. Okay, so nothing more complicated than a request for feedback. They've signed up. They were already going to get some kind of email or a text message, an SMS message to confirm their experience. Now that we know that their experience and their commitment levels matter, we need to make a business priority to capture those. Okay, you can capture 100% coverage of their commitment by asking the question on the street. The fundraiser will just hand the tablet over, and as they're taking the name and address and bank details, they can take the commitment score, okay, which we'll look at in a moment. So you get coverage on that, but you don't want to be asking people for their satisfaction with the street fundraiser and have the street fundraiser be asking the question. So for that, you want to send out, just within the email that's going out anyway to confirm what they did, an invitation to participate in the survey. Okay, and if we look at the next, image, we'll see what that might look like. Okay, so here's an example from the Canadian Red Cross. Okay, so again, just a text message that's come through, and we're asking people here to, how would you rate your experience with the fundraiser? Okay, and they can let us know. They can give us their commitment questions, which they were doing in this case. Then there's also a free text box for them just to tell us anything they want to tell us. What was that experience like? Is there anything that we should know? Is there anything you want to share with us? And that becomes a goldmine of information that can be looked at and explored later to start finding out thematically what's really going on out there. What process changes could we make? How could we maybe improve training and so on? But we'll dig into that a little bit later on. So as we move to the next slide, We then see what we need to do with this information. So as we kind of saw a little earlier, there's a basic automated quadrant of high commitment, low commitment, good experience, bad experience, and then generically the kind of actions that you might want to take. If it was high commitment, refer a friend. If it was, and a good experience, refer a friend, share that. But if it was a bad experience, apologize, and apologize where it matters, which was in the moment. But to do that, I had to know the moment had existed. Okay, low commitment, well, let's thank them and because they had a good experience, let's thank them and reinforce their decision. If it was a bad experience, and they were low commitment, apologize and more of a low touch outreach. Okay, and then that gets fully automated. So the face-to-face platform will push out the appropriate email to the appropriate person. So it's no longer one size fits all. It's specific to who they are and their interaction with you. Okay, then we see in the bottom right hand corner this kind of, as you can see, the donor ID. So totally private, we're not taking any confidential information, but you have a donor ID that will link back to your CRM, so you'll know exactly who that is. You've got the date they're recruited, their satisfaction with you, and then open-ended commentary, okay, which again becomes an enormous goldmine for your supporter services as and where it's appropriate to do one-on-one follow-up. Okay, so you're arming them with very specific information on what that supporter went through. So when you're having a conversation with them, you're not having to guess, you know what happened. Okay, so we can see, for example, the person at the bottom, very low satisfaction, and their commentary is, I was trapped in. Okay, there's another theme at the very top, love the organization, but this recruiter was really pushing me too much. Okay, so imagine what your supporter services can do with that information, as opposed to taking just a random sample of calling people up and really not knowing that much about them. Is this data important? Well, let's look at, on the left-hand side, we're seeing here a predictive model of what are the things that matter, what are the things that we need to be measuring and managing to assess whether people are staying or going. Okay, and you can, the trouble with models like this is they don't know what they're not measuring. The data is not going to answer questions that we don't ask. Okay, so in the current world, you can see that over a quarter of what we're assigning value to is the specific recruitment campaign. Yet if we look on the new model that factors in what's really driving that decision for people to stick around, we've times that by 7, 14, 21, 20. I mean, it nearly quadrupled, okay, the specific recruitment campaign. Okay, the number one predictor is commitment. Okay, so getting that commitment score, closely followed by donor satisfaction, and then closely followed by the age of the donor on the day of recruitment. Staggeringly disproportionate. These are the things that matter. Everything else is in tiny single digits. But if we start to look at from the left to the right hand side, on the left hand side in the current world, we're making the gender of the recruiter 10% when it's actually 3. We're making the different amounts sign up and the amount after the welcome call 10% when it's really 3. Okay, so there's an enormous inefficiency going on here because we don't know what it is we're missing. Okay, very easy to find that information. We just have to start to assign value to, this is what's causing people to stick around. This is what's driving the decision to stay or go. We need to start getting a handle on this, start measuring it and start managing it so it can fundamentally change the supporter experience to deliver greater value to them in order to derive greater value from them. Okay. So that's step one. I'm going to hand over to Rachel, but I'm going to just kind of preface that with this point. If we did nothing other than just this, it's already an improvement. But we would argue that that is really not going far enough. We would argue that you're fighting the alligators, okay, rather than what you really need to be doing is draining the swamp. I don't know how well that analogy plays out unless you're living in the Louisiana bayou, but I think we get the point. That we can be fighting this, on a daily basis, and spending all the energy and time fighting it, or we can be smart and fundamentally changing the causes and conditions that are creating the situation in the first place. So for that, I'm going to hand you over to Rachel, who's going to dig in and show you exactly how you can replicate what other charities are doing to achieve exactly that. Rach.
Thanks, Charlie. I think it's really simple when you put it like that. But sometimes the simplest things can be quite complex to actually deliver in your own organisation. So what we're looking at here is an actual solution, and it's something that is incredibly easy to implement. It takes a matter of weeks to implement, and really gives you as a fundraiser the most amazing depth and richness of insight on your acquisition campaigns to be able to start doing what you as fundraisers do best, which is testing and working out what works better, and actually stopping worrying about the reporting and management of acquisition campaigns and start really focusing on exactly what it is that will get people to stay. So the tool that we're talking about is going to give you all that information to be able to measure and act on quality measures, not quantity measures, but in real time as well. So we're not talking about acting on something 3 months after the campaign has started. We're not talking about sitting and waiting for the attrition to come in and then changing the way you train your fundraisers or the different campaigns that you're doing. We're talking about really kind of up to the minute information. And that will allow you to visually see that not everyone is the same, like Charlie alluded to before. You'll be able to have a real visual and individual level look at the donors that you're actually recruiting. That will enable you to manage fundraisers and your campaigns on a reactive basis, compare agencies, fundraisers and channel performance as well. This isn't just about face-to-face fundraising. This is about looking at the whole of your acquisition portfolio and working out which bit of which type of channel is bringing you the most highly committed donors that are going to stick around so that you can work out where best to invest your fundraising money. And it allows you to recruit for quality and quantity. So we're not suggesting that you kind of drastically pull back your quantity, but it allows you to have that visual overview of the quality. Not only that, the tool is going to, on an individual basis, predict who is at risk of leaving, and also, more importantly, why they're leaving. And it's going to give you that information before it happens so that you can actually act on that. That's going to allow you to move people to different products, let the right people go. As Charlie said, if you've got a clawback agreement with your agency, that's quite a good feature. However, if it's a case that you want to actually move those people into supporting the organisation in a different way, because you've spent the money and the time on recruiting them, so it may be just that you've recruited them onto the wrong product or the wrong way of supporting, then that will allow you to test and make those decisions. And it will allow you to concentrate your budget on those people that matter. In addition, the actual platform is going to give you some real practical benefit. There's an awful lot of back-end automation, which in the case of using different suppliers for perhaps your welcome calling or a DM agency to do your welcome packs or your supporter care team, we can automate daily actions. So there are some things that the tool can do itself, such as send follow-up emails. There are other things where data will automatically be exported out of the tool and can get sent to the people who are going to take care of those actions. And it also gives you an incredibly easy way of pulling together your management reports. This tool is going to bring in a whole load of different data from a whole load of different places and present it in a really visual, easy way for any high-level manager to look over the top line and then allow you as a fundraiser to drill down into the detail. So just looking at the data that the platform actually uses, it brings in data from all of the relevant sources, so all of your acquisition channels as well as your own CRM. So various number of face-to-face agencies if you're using different agencies. If you have an in-house team, it will pull in data from that, telemarketing agencies and your own CRM system. And it pulls it into the platform where it will send then the welcome survey to the donor to get that satisfaction score, because we obviously don't want to take that at the point of sign up. We'll be collecting commitment scores at the point of sign up, but we're very British, sometimes, and don't like to give true satisfaction feedback to either the recruiter or indeed somebody on the telephone. So the welcome survey email allows somebody to give accurate feedback. And that will then push data out to your donor care team, your CRM system, your email tool or your mail handler. And in the middle of that here, there is a whole load of data analysis that goes on, which will then come to you in the form of some really easy visual dashboards. So I'd just like to go through some of the dashboards, some of the ones that I think are the most important ones, having been in a situation where I'm running an individual giving program and kind of really wanting to know how to make it better and how to make things work. So what you're seeing here on the screen is the kind of top level overview. So this is the high level management overview, maybe something that gets pushed up to your management or board level on a regular basis. You can set your own KPIs based on age, commitment and satisfaction. So here we have a target median donor age, and it works on a fairly standard RAG rating, so red, amber, green, and the dials here will tell you exactly at any given time how well you're doing against your own KPIs. So we have here donor age, satisfaction and commitment level. So we can see here that this organisation is doing really well on satisfaction. Satisfaction levels high. In the past. Here acquisition your data from your recruiter comes in, and it can be sent as a PDF. Managing your fundraisers, but you can also use the screen to compare agency versus agency. You can look at campaign versus campaign. You can start looking at locations. Is there a particular location in your campaign which is producing more highly committed donors? Does the recruiter gender matter? We've been having conversations about, does the recruiter education level matter? Does the recruiter's accent matter? All that data is stuff that you can put into the platform and therefore report out. So over here we have our three key retention predictors. We have age, we have satisfaction, and we have commitment. And these, each bar represents a specific fundraiser. If we go down to commitment scores, we can see exactly how this can work. All of these fundraisers are recruiting exactly the same amount of people on a daily basis. So at the moment, we would say that they're all performing in exactly the same way. Using this platform, we can actually start to drill down into quality of donor rather than quantity. And again, this is at the point of sign-up rather than the point of kind of 3-6 months down the line when that person leaves. And we can see here that there are two fundraisers who have recruited 100% highly committed donors. So, so they're doing really well. Versus these two fundraisers who are recruiting 100% low committed donors. Now, Unless we had this information, we would assume that all of these 4 fundraisers are performing at exactly the same level, and we may in fact promote this fundraiser over here to team leader when it's these 2 fundraisers in the blue circles that really need to be considered for team leadership. We need to be looking at what is it that they are doing, which means that all of their donors are highly committed donors. And we need to be holding them up as people to learn from and making sure that all of our recruiters eventually get to that sort of level. Again, on the live demo, which we can come and do in your own organisation, we can have a look at donor agenda, we can have a look at campaign, and you'll see that it's fascinating that you can actually have a look at that quality versus quantity on so many different metrics. So once we've got that that kind of management screen, the next screen that I want to show you is the bucket screen, which Charlie was talking about. So this is where the tool is going to take all the outputs of the welcome survey and put all of our donors that we've recruited into commitments and satisfaction buckets. So we have over here we have highly committed donors who are satisfied and highly committed donors who are not satisfied. And down here we have low committed donors who are satisfied and low committed donors who are not satisfied. So these 2 groups here are both highly committed donors, but the difference is one group had a great experience and the other group had a poor experience. So when we're starting to think about how we're spending our budget on stewarding these donors through our welcome journey, we may decide to do very different things based on the experience that they've had. If they've had a good experience and they're committed, we might ask them to share, tell a friend, share on social media, do some sort of action to spread that word. And where we're looking at low committed donors but that are satisfied, we might just want to thank them, reinforce their decision and say you've done a great thing. Looking over at the non-satisfied donors, this is where we might take a hit on the low committed donors. Because if they're committed, we might want to spend a little bit more money, and instead of sending them an email or just a phone call and find out exactly how we can fix their experience. Satisfied, so that call can be really interactive, it can be highly but really, if we know that they're more likely to walk out the door, we don't really want to be spending as much what's going on by one of the great features of the platform, which is a churn predictor. And this is the churn prediction dashboard. What this does is by donors in the platform, that's on your CRM. We can measure them by an element of confidence, and we can put that together with their response from the survey. Decide what to do about it. Do we want to stop them from leaving? Them to ask if there's anything that we can do to retain them, or to suggest that they might want to to leave at a more timely level, at a more timely point for the campaign. Here we can see what attributes that score and what things are contributing that we know are contributing to the donor's decision to leave and when they might leave. And as time goes on, the retention data that will come back in from your CRM that feeds into that platform will become more accurate, and the model will become more to have a particular predictor which is more, more there's a number of other dashboards which you can explore during a live demo. And how you use that information is what will increase your retention fully. There are a number of other benefits. There's obviously the qualitative feedback, so you'll get all the information that comes back from the donor. And also the platform will track feedback and analyse so that it can tell you trends. So it may be that there's a specific thing that all of your highly committed donors are asking for or telling you that you can act on with confidence. The tool also automates emails for those low-level touch points, so you don't really need to do anything about it. Once those business rules are set up, then that happens automatically, allowing you to concentrate your resources on what you do best. The platform also takes care of all your data exports and push data for agencies and supported care. Again, that's going to reduce the amount of IT support that you'll need or time that you spend kind of collating data and sending data exports to agencies. One of the great features is that there is a cross-channel comparison dashboard, and with that, depending obviously it's the data that you put in, so the amount of different campaigns and channels that you feed into the platform, you can then look at comparing them against commitment and satisfaction. All of the dashboards are fully customizable and bespoke options available, so if there's something particularly that you want to know, there are particular dashboards that can be developed and customized so that you have exactly the reporting tools that you need. Equally, if your board or trustees or monthly reports need particular information, they can all be pulled into that overview dashboard. One of the massive benefits is that whilst this kind of looks a little bit complex, it can be set up in a matter of weeks. There are relationships already established with Ways Act and several agencies, and that means that the IT of getting information in, because whenever I hear the word data migration, consolidation, all of that kind of thing, I just think that's going to take an awful lot of time. But actually it's quite a streamlined process that can take data from your CRM, your agencies, and your campaigns, and it can be all ready to go in a matter of between 4 and 8 weeks. So, as we've mentioned before, this moves 6 months retention from 60 to 80% at Amnesty International Belgium, and it's generally because now we understand the why of human behaviour, so we understand why people might be walking out the back door. We can then use that as the basis for change, and we can then use that as intelligence to inform our decisions about what we do about it. A tool like this can only go so far, and insight can only go so far. What this tool is going to do is it's going to give you that information for then your fundraising teams to be able to test, try out things, pull different things in, push things out as they do and don't work, and really come up with the ultimate retention model for each individual bucket of donors. And Amnesty International have proved that a 20% increase is possible. So if you think about what 10% would do to your figures, and then on the high side what 30% would do to your figures, that gives you the kind of scope of what business intelligence like this can do for your fundraising program. Charlie.
Thanks, Rachel. So I found this. What you're looking at now on the screen is Amnesty before using this process and Amnesty after using this process. And you can see straight away that everything is improved. So the 6-month retention has shot up. Average startup time massively decreased. Estimated missed income due to inefficient data prior to this being put in place, about 8 to 12,000 every month. Euros. Estimated missed income due to inefficient data processing each month since using this, €0. Okay. The message we would leave you with is the we do not have to accept the horrendous levels of a donor attrition that we are seeing. There is a different, there is a better, there is a proven way to do this. The single biggest stumbling block between what you were seeing on the left-hand side of your screen and what you're seeing on the right-hand screen is not process, it's not investment, it's simply a mindset shift from saying, actually, we value and will assign value and will build our business around understanding supporter relationship and supporter experience. These are not fluffy, these are not buzzwords, these are empirically uncoverable and deliverable things. Supporter commitment, their relationship strength, and their experience with you. And by building the business around that, you will replicate and you may very well beat what you're seeing on your screen. So I'll leave you with this next slide, which is a quote from someone who's actually been part of this, was part of what you've done today. Craig Linton, I think, needs no introduction to fundraisers in the UK and actually around the world. He's one of the biggest influential figures who's always tried to stay ahead of the curve in what's making great fundraising. And you know, he said of this work that, I've seen this work at first hand, and I believe that there is nothing any charity can do, absolutely nothing, that has as much potential for improving supporter retention and net profitability than the work done with Donor Voice. So again, I hope you found that useful. I hope that's giving you food for thought. If you want more information, you can follow up to see short or long-term ROI calculators, indications, and see a more interactive demo of what Rachel's been talking about. So please do drop us a line. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for what you're doing for your causes, and we wish you the very best of luck with all your fundraising.